Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. This is the post-fight reviews for the Efe Ajagba vs Brian Howard fight and also Jared Anderson vs Jeremiah Karpency. So we'll start with Ajagba vs Howard first, which was the co-main event on the Smith-Vlasov card. And this was a stunning finish to a fight where Efe Ajagba, he looked good at times, but not spectacular, and definitely still an improving fighter. And there were some improvements on display, but I think one of the things that he's sort of caught between is, taking on these new lessons, implementing them in the ring, and you can almost see that he's overthinking things. Those first couple of rounds were very sedate in terms of the pace. Remembering Efe Ajagba in quite a few of his fights has been a guy who's had a really good engine. He's come forward, thrown a lot of shots, 80 punches around. Definitely did not see that in the first couple of rounds. Round one, he caught up with Brian Howard a couple of times. There was one right hand in particular that really backed Howard up. Round two, Howard had a little bit of success on the counter. Efe Ajagba coming forward, he landed the odd right hand, the jab was good for him, and in round three it was where it ended. Almost out of nowhere, this massive right hand detonates on Howard's chin, and he is down like the Titanic, and it was waved off immediately. So separated from his senses. So Efe Ajagba gets the highlight reel knockout that he's been needing and wanting, because his profile really has been sort of going down and down. The buzz around his career has sort of almost evaporated. So this is one of those sort of highlight reel knockouts that will get people sort of turning their heads going, wow, that was a good knockout. But looking at the performance ahead of that, yeah, it was okay. I mean, at times a little bit pedestrian, but you could see that he has been working on things, and I definitely think that there is some progression. It's, I guess, whether he can actually start stringing these things together in a more fluid manner, because once he steps up, he's going to need to be a bit more of a fluid fighter if he's going to sort of, box more than he sort of used to, where it was more so, he'd come forward, throw a lot of punches, and that offense was some of his defense. But I did see there was some more head movement, and I think there was a slight variation in punches. There was the odd uppercut coming in. He was trying left hooks. I mean, not all of these punches were landing with much success, but he was varying up the offense a bit. I mean, previously it's sort of been 1-2, 1-2, and the right hand's coming eventually. He really wasn't able to disguise it once he started fighting better guys. Some of the earlier guys in his career, they're standing in front of him. He's going to hit them with something eventually. Brian Howard was one of these matchups where he presented a little bit of a tricky style matchup because he's a boxer, he likes to move, he was going to stay out of the way if he could, and largely we did see that. So it really panned out exactly as I thought it would, that Howard would give him a few little tests and things to think about, but ultimately Ajagba was going to catch up with him eventually. There were points though where you sort of thought he didn't look that very threatening. I think because the low volume, and round two he didn't really land a lot of punches, but I guess that knockout in round three shows you the power is there, it's legit, and it can turn people's lights out, so you have to be on guard. But I was a little surprised how low volume and sedate it was at time. But overall, I thought the head movement was better, and I thought he looked a little better on his feet. Did you think he looked a little less flat-footed than usual? Normally he sort of trods forward, and it's very sort of like walking through molasses. But I did think there was a bit more of a spring in his step. Now, I don't think he's necessarily going to be able to completely change, what he does and become sort of some ultimate mover, and the footwork's going to be sublime or anything like that. But there is some improvement to the head movement, the punch variation. His footwork looked a little bit better, but I think he's got to try to, and maybe he's going to get a couple more of these opponents, string things together and have a really sort of fluid performance, because that one, great knockout, but not necessarily the best in terms of, putting it all together. But in terms of the other fight, Jared Anderson, this looked like it was only going to go one way pretty much from the beginning. Jeremiah Karpency didn't look like he wanted to be there, and he was dropped 2 times during the fight, both with body shots, a right hand to the sort of right side of the midsection, and both times it looked like it was maybe half power on them, if that. Sort of placed well by Anderson. Not necessarily everything on it, but the sort of softer midsection of Karpency did not like it, and he went down both times. And I sort of thought the second knockdown, and especially because he didn't want to get up, very soft. But obviously that's not Anderson's problem. He gets the job done. He was very patient in there, but he always, and this is, I guess, the difference between Ajagba and Anderson. Anderson's just a lot more fluid. He always looks a threat pretty much with most of what he's doing. Very accurate puncher, good punch variation, coming from different angles too. Ajagba just a bit more predictable at this point. You know, you can see he's thinking in there about what he wants to do and how he wants to do it, whereas for Anderson, just a bit more natural and flowing. But yeah, Anderson, it was what it was, and hopefully, there's a slightly tougher, more durable opponent in front of him next time out. And actually in the post-fight interview, he was asked when does he want to sort of step up and, be at that world level. And he thinks that he can be fighting for titles inside 12 months. I think, that's a bit optimistic on his part. He's just gone to 9-0, hasn't really fought anyone of note yet. Sure, he's gone through some of the requisite steps and some decent, durable journeymen, but that's at a certain level. That's not at contender level or world level at this point. But I like where he's going. It was a decent performance, and obviously he reminded us again, he's here, he's 21 years old, he's going to be a threat in the heavyweight division. But what did you make of these performances? Efe Ajagba, stunning knockout. The performance, yeah, it was okay. And Jared Anderson gets the job done. Body stoppage against Jeremiah Karpency. Drop a comment loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter. Boxing_squared. I'm out.